Hey guys, how the hell are ya? Welcome back to Arnold Drinks. My name is Arnold, and tonight I drink. So today's a very special day at Arnold Drinks because today I am finally cracking open my bottle of Errant Barrel that I purchased at Crowded Barrel Distillery in South Austin, Texas. South Austin. It's so South Austin, it might as well be Driftwood, Texas. But for those of you guys that don't know, Crowded Barrel Distillery is essentially the home base of operations for Dan and Rex and the other various characters that sometimes come through on the videos on Whiskey Tribe and Whiskey Vault. And my wife and I, we kind of had a date weekend and we went down there, had a blast. I got to try so many different whiskeys while I was there. And this was kind of one of my favorites. And I promise you, I'm not getting ahead of myself. But this was one of my favorites because I have kind of a love-hate relationship with peat. I don't like peat for the sake of peat. In that regard, it's kind of the same as higher proofage in whiskeys. I don't like it for the sake of it. I like it, and I like peat for the same reason, when it's bringing forth all of these other flavor notes and making it a much bigger, bolder flavor profile as a result. For that reason, this was kind of a highlight of that trip down to Crowded Barrel because, yeah, it's peaty, but it brought forth all these other notes that were super duper delicious in that taste profile. So I was like, ooh, I must own a bottle of this. But I have not cracked it open until today. This is Errant Barrel. It is Scotch whiskey that was sourced from Island Distillery in Scotland and then aged for 5 months in new oak whiskey barrels and then aged a further 14 months in used Buffalo Trace barrels. So, read between the lines, it's rather young. It's only 19 months aged, but is that going to have a negative effect on the flavor? Well, let's dive in, let's see. See, right away I'm getting the same notes on the aroma that I was getting when I tried this at the tasting room. Like, I'm getting big, bold toffee notes. That was the first thing that hit. A huge amount of toffee. There's a little bit of that peaty earthiness in there too. Ever so slightly dusty, but it's not being detrimental to the other flavors that were in there. A little bit of berry in there too, like a little bit of like a huckleberry, maybe mixed with some blueberry, maybe some blackberry in there as well. Just a little bit of fruity sweetness that's in the aroma. But probably still the main notes that I'm getting, a lot of toffee. Like a lot of caramel and toffee goodness, and then just a bit of that peaty earthiness. Wow. That's actually a bit better than I remember, truth be told. But whew, does it have a little bit of an unexpected thing happening on the palate and on the finish. Wow. Okay, so yeah, immediately you take the sip, you get that big, healthy dose of caramel and toffee coming through. You get a little tiny bit of that dustiness, that earthiness underneath, but it's not really hitting until you swish it around for a little bit, swish it around for maybe 5-10 seconds, and then all of a sudden, this brick in the face pepper note hits. That's only accentuated by the peat and only accentuated by the proofage, because this is 109.3 proof, if I remember right. Yeah, 109.3 proof, which means it's 54.65% ABV, so kind of high proofage, but man, it's got a big, bold kind of white pepper note that hits that is rather mouth-filling and kind of gives way to a long finish that dries out only ever so slightly at the end with a little bit of a drier, woodier finish. It's kind of funny, such a young whiskey and it's got a healthy dose of oak in there, but that's exactly what's happening. Let's go in for a second sip. Oh boy. See, that time I really switched it around like crazy because I was trying to like kind of provoke that sort of pepper note to come out quite a bit, and oh god, did it. It wasn't really coming out until I was really close to swallowing it, and then I just kind of knocked it back, and it was at that point where the pepper was like, oh, you forgot about me, motherfucker. Like, still huge on the toffee. Now I'm finally getting a bit of that berry that's coming through, but where it was more like a blueberry and blackberry note on the aroma, it's a little bit more of a raspberry note in the flavor profile. The dust, the peatiness is just kind of underneath it. There again, just pushing it forward. It's not a huge, bold peat flavor. It's one of those things that just is kind of underlying right underneath everything else. And oh my god, that's... for such a young whiskey, that's kind of an experience. This was $50 for the 375, so $50 for the pint at the distillery. I'll be honest, this is one of the best bottles that I own at this point. I can confidently say that. I would gladly pay that again because this is just so complex and rich. It's got a lot of everything going on, and the flavors are big and bold. Like, nothing is really subdued in there. It's just really upfront and making you take notice of every single note that's in there. And that time I took a little bit of a slower sip just because I wanted to see what that would end up doing to it. And that subdues the pepper note quite a bit. Still get a bit of that toffee in there. You get a little bit of kind of a hazelnut that's in there, but that is super duper subdued. Honestly, just kind of more of the same. Big toffee, a little bit of dusty peatiness underneath, and that big, bold raspberry that's in there, just kind of melding everything together. For gits and shiggles, since it is such a higher proof, let's just drop in a few drops of water into what's remaining in the Glencairn, just to see what that ends up doing to this. What's really odd is that in the aroma, it seems like it's causing the toffee note and the dusty peaty note to sort of separate and become more independent of each other. And that berry note is getting a little bit more subdued and a little bit buried. Ooh. Numb mouth. So even with a few drops of water brought into the mix, still huge proofage, huge pepper note. You can kind of hear in my voice, it's kind of numbing a little bit. Like I said, it's an experience. But there we go. Now it's starting to go away a little bit. Really long, dry finish when you introduce the water to it. Like drier than it was before. Just about gone. Still like huge finish up in the front of the mouth. Still very, very numb up there. Like, yeah, this is one that I would probably say best not to add water drops to it. It's a lot better, in my opinion, when it's at the full strength that it's bottled at. Don't get me wrong, it's still very, very enjoyable, but at the proper proofage, this thing is, quite honestly, it's just an experience. It's honestly a really, really awesome bottle, and I'm glad I bought it. If I ever make it down there again, I'm gonna pick up another one. So thank you guys so very much for tuning in. Please remember to like this video, subscribe to this channel, and also thank you guys so much. We did our hard launch not too long ago on March 1st, and you guys came in droves to subscribe to this new channel. I can't thank you guys enough for that. Your support and your patronage and your love means so much to me. Thank you guys so much. Lots more of this content to come. Please remember, take what you do seriously, but do not take yourselves too seriously.